and welcome to A Sound Constitution here on CHLY 101.7 FM, a show where we focus on health topics important to our community. This year's team is made up of 8 fourth-year nursing students here at VIU, and our goal is to demystify health issues and address common misconceptions by sharing evidence-informed information from a variety of reliable resources. All information provided on our show will be available in our show notes on our Instagram and Facebook pages, and we would like to remind listeners that the information presented in the show is for educational purposes only and does not replace the advice of your primary healthcare professional. If you have any questions or concerns about what's being discussed, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook at A Sound Constitution, Instagram at CHLY A Sound Constitution, all one word, or you could send us an email at asoundconstitution@gmail.com. We would like to start our show by acknowledging that we are on the unceded territory of the Snuneymuxw people with a broadcasting range that overlaps the Kwotson and the Sliamon territories. This acknowledgement is done with gratitude to the Snuneymuxw people and with the intention to increase awareness about truth and reconciliation processes and efforts on Vancouver Island. Welcome to today's episode of A Sound Constitution. It's Jamie here, your host, and today I would like to dive into a topic that affects countless lives across BC, the housing crisis. But rather than just focusing on the hardships, we want to shed light on something equally important: resilience, the strength of individuals and communities when faced with tough times. With rising costs, housing insecurity, and financial pressure, resilience becomes more than just survival. It's about finding hope and strength to keep moving forward. In this episode, we'll share stories, strategies, and resources that empower people to rise above housing challenges. We'll explore the power of mental resilience, the vital role of community support, and the practical tools available here in BC that can really make a difference. So whether you're struggling with housing insecurity yourself or you're here to learn, we hope this episode offers you more than just information. We hope it inspires a sense of possibility and hope, because even in the hardest times, it's resilience that keeps us going. Let's take a moment to understand the scale of the housing crisis here in BC, as numbers paint a powerful picture of just how widespread the challenges are and why resilience is so crucial right now. To help us break it down, here's Lauren with the latest statistics on housing and affordability here in BC.
Hi everyone, it's Lauren here with statistics. According to Statistics Canada, the Consumer Price Index for shelter has increased from 144.5 in 2019 to 172.5 in 2023. Canada's inflation rate rose from 3.1% in June 2021 to 8.1% 1 year later, the highest rate since the early 1980s and the fastest accelerating one since the early 1950s. In 2022, 5% of Canadians were living in deep income poverty, up from 3.6% in 2021. In 2021, 10.1% of Canadian households experienced core housing needs, down from 12.7% in 2016. Rent costs in Canada reached a 40-year high in October 2023. From July 2020 to July 2024, prices have increased significantly at 25.3% for owned accommodation, pushed upward by a 46.2% increase in mortgage interest costs. Prices for transportation, both public and private, increased 23.2%, food purchased from stores increased 23%, rented accommodation increased 23%, and healthcare, including prescriptions and services, increased 13% from July 2020 to July 2024. In contrast, the hourly minimum wage in BC increased from $15.20 in 2022 to $17.40 per hour on June 1st, 2024. In spring 2024, 4 in 10 Canadians aged 55 to 64 years of age, and nearly 3 in 10 of those aged 65 and older, reported that rising prices were greatly affecting their ability to meet day-to-day expenses. With the cost of living increasing each year, the effects on mental health can be profound. In a 2019 study by Bentley et al., it was found that there was an association between age, employment security, housing cost, and unaffordable housing. Younger cohorts are more likely to be in households where housing costs are unaffordable. 7% of 15 to 24-year-old people compared to 2% of 55 to 64-year-old people. And a larger percentage of income is spent on housing. For people under 44 years of age, they spend 15 to 17% of their income compared to 5 to 7% of their income for older age groups. According to a study published in June 2023 by Mason et al., housing payment problems were associated with a 2.5 percentage point increased risk of experiencing a common mental disorder and a 2% increased risk of sleep disturbance. In another study done in 2022 by Carrier et al., analyzing the mental health of people with housing insecurity, researchers found that prevalence of poor mental health was extremely high among participants and was higher among women. A risk of poor mental health was reported by 89% of women and 85.3% of men. Depression and/or anxiety were reported by 63.5% of women and 44.2% of men. Clearly, housing insecurity can greatly impact mental health. Thank you for listening to my segment on statistics.
Thank you, Lauren, for sharing those powerful statistics. As Lauren pointed out, housing insecurity doesn't just impact where people live. It can also have a profound effect on their mental health, adding another layer of challenge to an already difficult situation. But even in the face of these challenges, there are ways to strengthen our ability to cope and move forward. And this is where the power of mental resilience comes in. To explore this further, let's turn to Nicole, who will guide us through how resilience can be developed and why it's so important for anyone facing housing insecurity.
Hey there, it's Nicole, and in this segment, I want to talk about something that can really help when you're going through trying times: the power of mental resilience. It's a tool we can all develop, and it makes a huge difference, especially for anyone facing housing insecurity. So if that's you, or someone you care about, this segment is for you. When we lose our sense of security in relation to housing, it can lead to feelings of instability, fear, and uncertainty. Housing insecurity, such as not knowing if you can stay in your home, facing eviction, or living in poor conditions, creates a constant worry about the future. Without a stable home, it is hard to feel safe or in control. People may struggle with anxiety, stress, or depression as they lose the ability to plan ahead or feel rooted in one place. This can also impact one's sense of identity and belonging, as a stable home is often key to feeling established and connected to a community. So what is mental resilience? And why is it so important, especially when dealing with something as difficult as housing insecurity? Resilience is the ability to adapt to and recover from difficult situations, including stress, adversity, or trauma. It doesn't mean that challenges will disappear. Rather, it empowers you to handle them, process stress, and keep moving forward. Think of resilience like a muscle that strengthens with use. It's not a fixed trait, but a skill we can develop over time. By practicing certain coping strategies, such as mindfulness and building support networks, we can all enhance our resilience. Research shows that resilience is important for maintaining mental health during tough times, helping to prevent burnout and reducing the risk of mental health disorders like anxiety and depression. Also, it can enhance physical health by lowering stress-related issues such as high blood pressure. Now, why is this important? Well, if you're dealing with, say, housing insecurity, you already know how hard it is to focus on anything else when you're worried about keeping a roof over your head. Housing insecurity isn't just about being homeless. It also includes things like living in unstable conditions, worrying about rent, or bouncing between temporary places. All of this creates a lot of stress, and that can really affect your mental health. But here's where resilience comes in. When we talk about resilience, we're talking about skills that help you manage stress and move forward, even when life feels overwhelming. It's completely normal to feel weighed down when big challenges happen in life. But the good news is that mental resilience can help you manage those stressors better. It won't fix everything, but it'll give you tools to cope. And there are plenty of ways you can build resilience even during these hard times. The Canadian Mental Health Association and HealthLink BC have some ideas on how you can make small changes in your life to help build mental resilience. One of the easiest ways to start building resilience is through self-care. When you're stressed out, it's really easy to skip meals, lose sleep, or neglect your own needs. But the simple things, getting enough rest, eating regularly, going for a walk, can make huge differences in how you feel and how well you can handle stress. Keeping healthy routines, like getting enough sleep, not only help you think clearly, but can also boost your mood and reduce stress. If you're not getting enough sleep, for example, it's harder to make decisions or manage your emotions. Taking care of your body is a key way to take care of your mind. Believe it or not, helping others in times of despair can significantly bolster resilience for several reasons. Engaging in acts of kindness helps you to redirect your attention away from your own difficulties and promotes a sense of purpose. It enhances a sense of community and social ties, which are vital for resilience and emotional well-being. When you see the positive impact you have on others, it can reignite hope and motivation and generate positive feelings such as happiness and fulfillment, all of which contribute to emotional resilience. Focusing on what you have to offer rather than what you lack can cultivate a more positive outlook on life, increasing a sense of gratitude. Another way to build resilience is by focusing on problem solving. When you're in a tough spot, it's easy to get overwhelmed and feel like there's nothing you can do. But even in difficult situations, there are usually small, manageable steps you can take to make things better. When you break down big problems into small parts, it can help make things feel less overwhelming. For example, if you're stressed about your housing situation, instead of thinking, I need to solve everything right now, focus on one small step. Maybe that step is looking into community housing resources or creating a budget for the week. Problem solving doesn't mean fixing everything at once, but it does help you gain a sense of control, even in hectic situations. Focusing on what's within your control is a key part of resilience. Taking small steps towards improving your situation, no matter how small, builds a sense of hope and keeps you moving forward. Speaking of hope, it plays a big role in resilience. Even when things feel tough, hope helps you believe that change is possible. Resilience doesn't mean ignoring the challenges or pretending things are fine. It's about acknowledging the difficulty and believing that there is a way forward. Hope is a powerful force. It is what allows us to keep looking ahead, to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. Research highlights that hope is a very important part of resilience. It's about maintaining a vision for a better future, even when the present feels overwhelming and daunting. By developing mental resilience, we're also building the foundation for hope. One way to keep hope alive is by maintaining a positive outlook. This does not mean being overly optimistic or ignoring real problems. It's about focusing on your strengths and the progress that you are making, even if it's small. For example, maybe you managed to find a safe place to stay for the week, or you connected with someone who helped you explore new housing options. Celebrate these small victories. It can help keep your spirits up and keep you going. Another important part of resilience is learning from setbacks. It is normal to face setbacks, especially when you're dealing with something as stressful as housing insecurity. What is important is how you respond. Resilience means seeing setbacks as opportunities to learn from, rather than failures. Ask yourself, what did I learn from this experience and how can I handle things differently next time? This kind of reflection helps you grow stronger over time. We've all been through tough situations before. Think back to a time when you faced something difficult and made it through. What skills or strengths helped you then? Recognizing that you've overcome challenges before can help you see that you have what it takes to face new ones. Being flexible is another key part of resilience. Life doesn't always go according to plan, and housing instability often forces you to adapt to unexpected changes. Maybe you have to move sooner than expected, or a housing option you were counting on falls through. Flexibility helps you adapt to these changes without feeling like you've lost control. Being resilient means understanding that it's okay to change your approach if your original plan doesn't work out. Staying flexible and open to new possibilities can help you navigate housing insecurity more easily. Another way to build resilience is through mindfulness. Mindfulness means staying present in the moment and being aware of your thoughts and feelings without getting overwhelmed by them. This can help reduce stress and keep things in perspective. When we're stressed, our minds often race, making problems seem bigger than they are. Mindfulness helps slow things down and brings us back to the present moment. You don't need a lot of time to practice mindfulness. It can be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, focusing on the sensations in your body, or spending a few moments noticing what's around you. A simple mindfulness exercise is to notice what you are experiencing around you right now with your 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. Take a few slow breaths and ask yourself, what are 3 things I can hear? What are 3 things I can see? What are 3 things I can feel? What are 3 things I can smell? And what are 3 things I can taste? Think of these answers slowly to yourself, one sense at a time, to help bring yourself into the present moment. You can find more information on mindfulness at ementalhealth.ca. These little moments of mindfulness can help you reset and approach problems with a clearer, calmer mind. To wrap things up, resilience is a skill we can all work on. It's not about toughing it out or ignoring the problem. It's about acknowledging what's difficult, finding ways to take care of yourself, and believing that you can navigate through the hard times. Resilience might look like reaching out for help, protecting your mental health, or simply being kind to yourself when things don't go as planned. And remember, hope is a big part of resilience. It's the belief that things can get better even when the road ahead looks impossible. By taking small steps, staying connected with others, and focusing on what you can control, you are building resilience. And that's something that will help you through even the most challenging times. So take care of yourself, lean on your community,
and keep hope alive. You've got this.
Thank you, Nicole, for sharing those valuable insights on mental resilience. It's so important to remember that building resilience is something we can all work on, and it's great to know that there are small, practical steps we can take to strengthen our ability to cope with challenges like housing insecurity. Now, before we jump into our next segment, we're just going to take a quick break with some fun, interesting health facts. Did you know that dark chocolate with at least 70% cocoa can improve brain function? Dark chocolate is packed with flavonoids, which are powerful antioxidants that help improve cognitive function by increasing blood flow to the brain. A study published in the journal Nutrition, a leading peer-reviewed journal focusing on human nutrition, found that regular consumption of flavonoid-rich foods like dark chocolate can lead to improvements in attention, processing speed, and memory. This makes dark chocolate not only a delicious treat, but also a potential brain booster. And did you know that eating a handful of almonds daily can boost your memory? Almonds are rich in vitamin E, an antioxidant that plays a crucial role in slowing the cognitive decline and boosting memory function. According to a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, higher intake of vitamin E has been associated with better memory performance, particularly in older adults. This makes almonds a brain-friendly snack for long-term cognitive health. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, I think dark chocolate-covered almonds sounds like a good treat. And did you know that a single cup of spinach can help improve muscle strength? Spinach is a nitrate-rich food, and nitrates are known to enhance muscle efficiency by improving oxygen use. Research published in Frontiers of Physiology, a peer-reviewed journal that covers all aspects of human physiology, showed that regular consumption of nitrate-rich foods like spinach improves muscle function and strength, making it a great addition to a fitness diet. And last but not least, did you know that laughter can boost your immune system? Laughter doesn't just improve your mood, it has physiological effects on the body. Research published in Psychological Science, a peer-reviewed journal of the Association for Psychological Science, shows that laughter increases the production of antibodies and activates immune cells like T cells, which help defend the body against infections. It also reduces levels of stress hormones like cortisol, which can weaken the immune system. Regular laughter has been linked to a stronger immune system and greater resilience to illness. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed those fun facts. Now, I would like to dive back into our conversation and add to what Nicole was saying. I want to emphasize why small actions can make a big difference. It's easy to think that small actions don't matter when life feels overwhelming, but the truth is, these seemingly insignificant steps can be incredibly powerful. They may not solve every challenge, but they can challenge how we feel and how we respond to the bigger problems we face. Let's explore the science behind why these small actions work and how they can lead to big changes in your day-to-day life. Let's take, for example, the simple act of making your bed. On the surface, this might seem trivial. What difference could it possibly make when bigger things are out of your control, like housing insecurity or financial strain? But Charles Doug, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author of The Power of Habit, explains that small actions like this are what he calls keystone habits. And keystone habits are behaviors that can spark a chain reaction, leading to other positive actions throughout your day. When you make your bed, you accomplish a small, straightforward task. This small act activates the basal ganglia, the part of your brain responsible for habit formation and routine behaviors. By doing something as simple as tidying up first thing in the morning, you're giving your brain a mental win, which helps set a positive tone for the day. It's not just about a neat bed, it's about creating a sense of order in a world that may otherwise feel chaotic. That sense of accomplishment can ripple through the rest of your day, making it easier to tackle larger challenges. Doug emphasizes that keystone habits aren't just about the immediate benefit. They act as a foundation for other healthy behaviors. When you start your day by making your bed, you're signaling to yourself that you have control over your environment. This small act can lead to other productive behaviors such as organizing your desk or following through on other commitments. These keystone habits provide a sense of stability and control. Building new neural pathways through repetition. Repetition is the key to turning small actions into lasting habits. According to Dr. Philippa Lally, a health psychology researcher at University College London, it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit. In her study, published in the European Journal of Social Psychology, Dr. Lally found that the repetition of small actions helps create new neural pathways in the brain, making the behavior easier to repeat and, over time, automatic. Neural pathways are like mental highways that connect different parts of the brain involved in behaviors and habits. The more you repeat a behavior, the stronger that connection becomes. Think of it as carving a path through a forest. The more often you walk that path, the more defined and easier it becomes to follow. Similarly, by repeating small actions like making your bed or completing a daily task, you're reinforcing these neural pathways, making it easier to continue the behavior without much effort. Over time, these small actions become habitual. You don't have to think about them, they just happen. This is how starting with small steps can lead to big, long-term changes. By strengthening these pathways, you're training your brain to adopt new, positive behaviors that require less conscious effort. This means that once a small habit is formed, it becomes easier to focus your energy on bigger challenges. Now, to expand on this idea of gaining control over what we can, I'd like to introduce Lara, who will share some potential useful resources that may be beneficial to you.
Hi, Lara here. I'm going to be discussing some of the support systems that are available in BC and Nanaimo, as well as the crucial role of social connections and support systems in fostering resilience and well-being in times of housing instability. So first of all, according to the Canadian Mental Health Association, mental wellness depends on community and connection to others. All the social determinants of mental health, from socioeconomic status to housing, employment, and discrimination, all operate in relation to multiple layers of social inclusion. Whether a person can meet their basic needs, cultivate friendships, secure a sense of place within their community, and maintain a stable position in that social context determines their vulnerability to anxiety, depression, and problematic substance use. So now I want to highlight some of the support systems in Nanaimo specifically, such as some of our food banks. The Loaves and Fishes Food Bank, for example, serves over 15,000 people in 44 communities, including 15 Indigenous communities across Vancouver Island. They provide food directly to people through their Nanaimo, Cedar, and Port Hardy food markets, and everyone is welcome regardless of income or where they live. Food is also provided to over 100 community partners, including charities, schools, food banks, and Indigenous communities across the island. And just last year alone, in 2023, they provided over $9 million worth of good food directly to those who needed it. We also have the Nanaimo Food Share, which has a variety of great programs as well, including the Good Food Box program, which is a group buying program that helps bring affordable fresh fruits and vegetables to our community. They also have the BC Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon program, which is fabulous. It offers eligible participants weekly coupons with a cash value of $27, which will get you quite far buying produce at a farmer's market. They also have a program called Generations Eating Together for those who are 55 plus and are looking to connect with like-minded peers, create social connections, and bond over healthy eating habits and cooking food. Now on to dental plans, which are being offered to low-income folks and seniors. So the Canadian Dental Care Plan is helping make the cost of dental care more affordable for eligible Canadian residents. Applications are now open for seniors age 65 and up, children under the age of 18, and adults with a valid federal disability tax credit certificate for 2023. And all families with incomes under $70,000 will be able to get 100% of their eligible oral health care service costs covered. Now let's talk about the BC Renters Tax Credit. So for this tax credit, you must occupy an eligible rental unit for at least 6 one-month periods during the year. For the 2023 tax year, the maximum renters tax credit you receive is $400. And the credit is reduced by 2% of the amount by which your 2023 adjusted income exceeds $60,000. And that adjusted income threshold will be further adjusted in line with inflation each year. Let's talk about Rent Bank BC next, which provides vital supports and services for renters who are 19 plus or emancipated minors. BC renters who are experiencing a crisis that has impacted their ability to pay rent or utilities, such as gas, hydro, or water. In addition to financial support, they connect low and moderate income individuals and families in BC with services such as financial literacy, debt relief, as well as government benefits and housing supports, physical needs such as food and clothing, and referrals to support physical, mental, and emotional well-being. They have comprehensive services, non-judgmental approaches to alleviate stress and ensure people get back on their feet and maintain their housing. Next, let's discuss the first-time homebuyer program. So to qualify for this tax exemption, you must be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, live in BC for at least a year before the date you register the property, and file at least 2 income tax returns as a BC resident in the last 6 taxation years. Property has to be your principal residence and have a market value of $835,000 or less, and has to be below half a hectare in size. If those requirements are met, then the purchaser is exempt from property tax on the first $500,000 of the purchase price for the property. Next, let's discuss the Registered Disability Savings Plan. So what is it? The RDSP is a Canada-wide registered match savings plan specifically for people with disabilities. Here are some basics about it. So for every dollar that you put into this account, the federal government can match you with up to $3 depending on your income. And this is called the Canada's Disability Savings Grant. And for those who are living on a low income, the federal government will put in $1,000 each year for 20 years. And this is called the Canada Disability Savings Bond. And anyone can contribute, family, friends, neighbors, gives people a way to help out if they wish to do so. And it's exempt from most provincial and disability income benefit and income assistance benefits. It does not get clawed back and does not reduce disability benefits payments. And there's no restrictions on how the money is spent, and all the major financial institutions in Canada offer it. Finally, I wanted to end with a little bit of information about the Universal Basic Income pilot that was done in 2017 in Ontario. So the government of Ontario rolled out this basic income pilot project to recipients aged 18 to 64. The program ended prematurely in 2019 after a political change when Doug Ford's government was elected. Nevertheless, a great deal was learned, and a lot of feedback was received on the difference a basic income made to the participants' lives. According to a study published in the Journal of Poverty by Hamilton and Mulvale, 4 primary themes emerged from the interviews done with these participants. First, a desire among the participants to work and be financially independent. Second, that traditional welfare payments are extremely low and do not cover basic necessities, while basic income is higher and does cover those necessities. Third, beyond the basic differences in benefit amount, the conditionality of traditional welfare programs has significant negative repercussions for recipients. Fourth, basic income has facilitated long-term financial planning in the participants. As I've previously mentioned, because this basic income pilot in Ontario was closed early. The Basic Income Canada Network released the results of a survey with the 4,000 program participants. And a majority of those participants reported reduced stress, anxiety, and depression. And over half reported improvements in housing stability, nutrition, and relationships. And a third of these respondents reported that basic income had allowed them to improve their economic conditions due to their ability to maintain transportation, childcare, which facilitated their ability to work, return to school, or start a small business.
Wow, that's really significant. Thanks for sharing that information, Lara, especially about Ontario's basic income pilot. It's amazing to hear how much of an impact the program had on people's lives, even if it was for a short time. It's great to hear about the support and resources available in our community as well. Managing finances can be tough for anyone, especially during uncertain times. That's why I'd like to share some tools that could be helpful, whether you're trying to stay on top of bills, save a little more, or just get a clearer picture of your finances. These resources are available to everyone and are designed to make things a little easier. One great resource is the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, a federal government body that offers free financial literacy programs. They provide easy-to-use tools and guides on topics like budgeting, managing debt, and saving, all aimed at helping Canadians feel more in control of their financial situation. Another helpful tool is Mint, one of the most popular apps for managing personal finances. According to Investopedia, a trusted resource for financial education, Mint helps users track their spending, create budgets, and monitor financial goals in real time. It provides a clear overview of income, expenses, and goals, making it easier to stay on track. I personally use Mint and it's provided valuable insights in helping manage my finances better. There's other apps like You Need a Budget, which has been featured by the New York Times and Forbes, which are excellent for those who want to take a more proactive approach, planning out where every dollar goes. If automatic savings is more your style, apps like Koho and Mocha make saving easier. Koho, a prepaid card partnered with Visa, rounds up your purchases to the nearest dollar to help you save without thinking about it. Mocha, as highlighted by MoneySense, automatically invests your spare change from daily purchases. These tools are simple and accessible ways to help you reach your savings goals. When it comes to managing bills, Pocket Guard is another great app. It analyzes your spending and helps you see how much disposable income you have left after taking care of the essentials. Both NerdWallet and Business Insider commend Pocket Guard for its practical insights. If you'd like more personalized advice, organizations like Credit Counseling Canada offer free support with debt management, and WorkBC provides financial literacy workshops to help build long-term financial skills. These resources are available to anyone looking to reduce financial stress and gain confidence in managing their money. Now, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'll be playing an impactful TED Talk by Brené Brown. In this talk, she will dive into how embracing vulnerability can be a source of strength and personal growth. So stay tuned, you won't want to miss it. It's time to bust some common health myths. You've probably heard of these before, and today we're setting the record straight. So let's dive in. Myth number 1. Cold weather causes colds. Fact. Contrary to popular beliefs, cold weather does not make you sick. Viruses do. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, people are more likely to catch colds in the winter because they spend more time indoors, in closer contact with others, which makes it easier for viruses to spread. Myth number 2. You need to drink 8 glasses of water a day. Fact. There's no universal rule that everyone needs 8 glasses of water daily. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition shows that hydration needs vary based on individual factors like weight, activity level, and the environment. So it's best to listen to your body's natural thirst signals. Myth number 3. You can sweat out toxins. Fact. Sweating doesn't remove toxins from your body. Your liver and kidneys handle detoxification. According to a study published in the Journal of Environmental and Public Health, sweat is made up mostly of water, salt, and small amounts of other minerals, but toxins are processed through your liver and kidneys. And last but not least, myth number 4. Gum stays in your stomach for 7 years if you swallow it. Fact. Good news. Swallowed gum doesn't stick around for years. According to research from Harvard Medical School, gum passes through your digestive system just like other food. Though it doesn't break down as easily, your body clears it out within a few days. Remember, reliable, evidence-based information is key to making informed health decisions. Welcome back. As promised, we will now be playing an insightful TED Talk by Brené Brown, a research professor and renowned author. In this talk titled The Power of Vulnerability, Brené explores how embracing vulnerability, something we often shy away from, can actually help us build strength, deepen our connections, and overcome challenges. I chose this talk because I think it ties perfectly into our focus on resilience, whether it's managing financial stress, personal hardships, or other life challenges. Brené will remind us that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a path to growth and resilience. So without further ado, let's listen to Brené Brown's The Power of Vulnerability.
So I'll start with this. A couple of years ago, an event planner called me because I was going to do a speaking event. And she called and she said, I'm really struggling with how to write about you on the little flyer. And I thought, well, what's the struggle? And she said, well, I saw you speak, and I'm going to call you a researcher, I think, but I'm afraid if I call you a researcher, no one will come because they'll think you're boring and irrelevant. And I was like, okay. And she said, but the thing I liked about your talk is, you're a storyteller. So I think what I'll do is just call you a storyteller. And of course, the academic, insecure part of me was like, you're going to call me a what? And she said, I'm going to call you a storyteller. And I was like, oh, why not Magic Pixie? I was like, let me think about this for a second. And so I tried to call deep on my courage. And I thought, I am a storyteller. I'm a qualitative researcher. I collect stories. That's what I do. And maybe stories are just data with a soul, and maybe I'm just a storyteller. So I said, you know what? Why don't you just say I'm a researcher storyteller? And she went, there's no such thing. So I'm a researcher or storyteller. And I'm going to talk to you today. We're talking about expanding perception. And so I want to talk to you and tell some stories about a piece of my research that fundamentally expanded my perception and really actually changed the way that I live and love and work and parent. And this is where my story starts. When I was a young researcher, doctoral student, my first year I had a research professor who said to us, here's the thing, if you cannot measure it, it does not exist. And I thought he was just sweet talking me. I was like, really? And he's like, absolutely. So you have to understand that I have a bachelor's in social work, a master's in social work, and I was getting my PhD in social work. So my entire academic career was surrounded by people who kind of believed in the life's messy, love it, and I'm more the life's messy, clean it up, organize it, and put it into a bento box. And so to think that I had found my way, to found a career that takes me, really one of the big sayings in social work is lean into the discomfort of the work. And I'm like, knock discomfort upside the head and move it over and get all A's. That was my mantra. So I was very excited about this. And so I thought, you know what? This is the career for me because I am interested in some messy topics, but I want to be able to make them not messy. I want to understand them. I want to hack into these things that I know are important and lay the code out for everyone to see. So where I started was with connection, because by the time you're a social worker for 10 years, what you realize is that connection is why we're here. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. This is what it's all about. It doesn't matter whether you talk to people who work in social justice and mental health and abuse and neglect. What we know is that connection, the ability to feel connected, is neurobiologically, that's how we're wired. It's why we're here. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to start with connection. Well, that situation where you get an evaluation from your boss and she tells you 37 things that you do really awesome and one thing that you can't, an opportunity for growth. And all you can think about is that opportunity for growth, right? Well, apparently this is the way my work went as well, because when you ask people about love, they tell you about heartbreak. When you ask people about belonging, they'll tell you their most excruciating experiences of being excluded. And when you ask people about connection, the stories they told me were about disconnection. So very quickly, really about 6 weeks into this research, I ran into this unnamed thing that absolutely unraveled connection in a way that I didn't understand or had never seen. And so I pulled back out of the research and thought, I need to figure out what this is. And it turned out to be shame. And shame is really easily understood as the fear of disconnection. Is there something about me that if other people know it or see it, that I won't be worthy of connection? The things I can tell you about it, it's universal. We all have it. The only people who don't experience shame have no capacity for human empathy or connection. No one wants to talk about it, and the less you talk about it, the more you have it. What underpinned this shame, this I'm not good enough, which we all know that feeling, I'm not blank enough, I'm not thin enough, rich enough, beautiful enough, smart enough, promoted enough. The thing that underpinned this was excruciating vulnerability. This idea of, in order for connection to happen, we have to allow ourselves to be seen, really seen. And you know how I feel about vulnerability. I hate vulnerability. And so I thought, this is my chance to beat it back with my measuring stick. I'm going in, I'm gonna figure this stuff out, I'm gonna spend a year, I'm gonna totally deconstruct shame, I'm gonna understand how vulnerability works, and I'm gonna outsmart it. So I was ready, and I was really excited. As you know, it's not gonna turn out well. You know this. So I could tell you a lot about shame, but I'd have to borrow everyone else's time. But here's what I can tell you that it boils down to. And this may be one of the most important things that I've ever learned in the decade of doing this research. My 1 year has turned into 6 years, thousands of stories, hundreds of long interviews, focus groups. At one point, people were sending me journal pages and sending me their stories, thousands of pieces of data. And 6 years. And I kind of got a handle on it. I kind of understood this is what shame is, this is how it works. I wrote a book, I published a theory, but something was not okay. And what it was is that if I roughly took the people I interviewed and divided them into people who really have a sense of worthiness, that's what this comes down to, a sense of worthiness. They have a strong sense of love and belonging. And folks who struggle for it, and folks who are always wondering if they're good enough. There was only one variable that separated the people who have a strong sense of love and belonging and the people who really struggle for it, and that was the people who have a strong sense of love and belonging believe they're worthy of love and belonging. That's it. They believe they're worthy. And to me, the hard part of the one thing that keeps us out of connection is our fear that we're not worthy of connection, was something that personally and professionally I felt like I needed to understand better. So what I did is I took all of the interviews where I saw worthiness, where I saw people living that way, and just looked at those. What do these people have in common? And I have a slight office supply addiction, but that's another talk. So I had a manila notebook, a manila folder, and I had a Sharpie, and I was like, what am I going to call this research? And the first words that came to my mind were wholehearted. These are kind of wholehearted people living from this deep sense of worthiness. So I wrote at the top of the manila folder, and I started looking at the data. In fact, I did it first in this in a 4-day, very intensive data analysis where I went back, pulled these interviews, pulled the stories, pulled the incidents. What's the theme? What's the pattern? My husband left town with the kids because I always go into this kind of Jackson Pollock crazy thing where I'm just like writing and going and kind of just in my researcher mode. And so here's what I found. What they had in common was a sense of courage. And I want to separate courage and bravery for you for a minute. Courage, the original definition of courage, when it first came into the English language, it's from the Latin word cur, meaning heart. And the original definition was to tell the story of who you are with your whole heart. And so these folks had, very simply, the courage to be imperfect. They had the compassion to be kind to themselves first and then to others, because as it turns out, we can't practice compassion with other people if we can't treat ourselves kindly. And the last was they had connection, and this was the hard part, as a result of authenticity. They were willing to let go of who they thought they should be in order to be who they were, which is, you have to absolutely do that for connection. The other thing that they had in common was this. They fully embraced vulnerability. They believed that what made them vulnerable made them beautiful. They didn't talk about vulnerability being comfortable, nor did they really talk about it being excruciating, as I had heard earlier in the shame interviewing. They just talked about it being necessary. They talked about the willingness to say I love you first. The willingness to do something where there are no guarantees. The willingness to breathe through waiting for the doctor to call after your mammogram. The willing to invest in a relationship that may or may not work out. They thought this was fundamental. I personally thought it was betrayal. I could not believe I had pledged allegiance to research, where our job, the definition of research is to control and predict, to study phenomenon for the explicit reason to control and predict. And now my mission to control and predict had turned up the answer that the way to live is with vulnerability and to stop controlling and predicting. This led to a little breakdown, which actually looked more like this. And it did. It led to I call it a breakdown, my therapist calls it a spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening sounds better than breakdown, but I assure you it was a breakdown. And I had to put my data away and go find a therapist. Let me tell you something. You know who you are when you call your friends and say, I think I need to see somebody. Do you have any recommendations? Because about 5 of my friends are like, woo, I wouldn't want to be your therapist. And I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, I'm just saying, don't bring your measuring stick. It's like, okay. So I found a therapist. My first meeting with her, Diana, I brought in my list of the way the wholehearted live. And I sat down, and she said, how are you? And I said, I'm great, I'm okay. And she said, what's going on? And I said, and this is a therapist who sees therapists, because we have to go to those because their BS meters are good. And so I said, here's the thing, I'm struggling. And she said, what's the struggle? And I said, well, I have a vulnerability issue, and I know that vulnerability is kind of the core of shame and fear and our struggle for worthiness, but it appears that it's also the birthplace of joy, of creativity, of belonging, of love, and I think I have a problem, and I need some help. And I said, but here's the thing, no family stuff, no childhood, I just need some strategies. Thank you. And then I said, it's bad, right? And she said, it's neither good nor bad. It just is what it is. And I said, oh my God, this is gonna suck. And it did, and it didn't. And it took about a year. And you know how there are people that, like, when they realize that vulnerability and tenderness are important, that they kind of surrender and walk into it? A, that's not me. And B, I don't even hang out with people like that. For me, it was a year-long street fight. It was a slugfest. Vulnerability pushed, I pushed back. I lost the fight, but probably won my life back. And so then I went back into the research and spent the next couple of years really trying to understand what they, the wholehearted, what the choices they were making, and what are we doing with vulnerability? Why do we struggle with it so much? Am I alone in struggling with vulnerability? No. So this is what I learned. We numb vulnerability. When we're waiting for the call, it was funny, I sent something out on Twitter and on Facebook that says, how would you define vulnerability? What makes you feel vulnerable? And within an hour and a half, I had 150 responses. Because I wanted to know, what's out there. Having to ask my husband for help because I'm sick and we're newly married. Initiating sex with my husband. Initiating sex with my wife. Being turned down, asking someone out. Waiting for the doctor to call back. Getting laid off, laying off people. This is the world we live in. We live in a vulnerable world. And one of the ways we deal with it is we numb vulnerability. And I think there's evidence, and it's not the only reason this evidence exists, but I think that it's a huge cause. We are the most in debt, obese, addicted, and medicated adult cohort in US history. The problem is, and I learned this from the research, that you cannot selectively numb emotion. You can't say, here's the bad stuff. Here's vulnerability, here's grief, here's shame, here's fear, here's disappointment. I don't want to feel these. I'm going to have a couple of beers and a banana nut muffin. I don't want to feel these. And I know that's knowing laughter. I hack into your lives for a living. I know that's, God. You can't numb those hard feelings without numbing the other affects or emotions. You cannot selectively numb. So when we numb those, we numb joy. We numb gratitude. We numb happiness. And then we are miserable and we are looking for purpose and meaning. And then we feel vulnerable. So then we have a couple of beers and a banana nut muffin. And it becomes this dangerous cycle. One of the things that I think that we need to think about is why and how we numb. And it doesn't just have to be addiction. The other thing we do is we make everything that's uncertain certain. Religion has gone from a belief in faith and mystery to certainty. I'm right, you're wrong, shut up. That's it. Just certain. The more afraid we are, the more vulnerable we are, the more afraid we are. This is what politics looks like today. There's no discourse anymore. There's no conversation. There's just blame. You know how blame is described in the research? A way to discharge pain and discomfort. We perfect. If there's anyone who wants their life to look like this, it would be me. But it doesn't work, because what we do is we take fat from our butts and put it in our cheeks. Which just, I hope in 100 years people will look back and go, wow. And we perfect, most dangerously, our children. Let me tell you what we think about children. They're hardwired for struggle when they get here. When you hold those perfect little babies in your hand, our job is not to say, look at her, she's perfect. My job is just to keep her perfect, make sure she makes the tennis team by 5th grade and Yale by 7th grade. That's not our job. Our job is to look and say, you know what? You're imperfect and you're wired for struggle, but you are worthy of love and belonging. That's our job. Show me a generation of kids raised like that and we'll end the problems I think that we see today. We pretend that what we do doesn't have an effect on people. We do that in our personal lives. We do that corporate, whether it's a bailout, an oil spill, a recall. We pretend like what we're doing doesn't have a huge impact on other people. I would say to companies, this is not our first rodeo, people. We just need you to be authentic and real and say, we're sorry, we'll fix it. But there's another way, and I'll leave you with this. This is what I have found. To let ourselves be seen, deeply seen, vulnerably seen. to love with our whole hearts, even though there's no guarantee. And that's really hard. And I can tell you as a parent, that's excruciatingly difficult. To practice gratitude and joy in those moments of kind of terror when we're wondering, can I love you this much? Can I believe in this passionately? Can I be this fierce about this? Just to be able to stop and instead of catastrophizing what might happen, to say, I'm just so grateful, because to feel this vulnerable means I'm alive. And the last, which I think is probably the most important, is to believe that we're enough. Because when we work from a place, I believe, that says, I'm enough, then we stop screaming and start listening. We're kinder and gentler to the people around us, and we're kinder and gentler to ourselves. That's all I have. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this TED Talk by Brené Brown on the power of vulnerability. It's always inspiring to hear how embracing vulnerability can lead to growth and resilience. Before we wrap up, I'd like to take a moment to thank my co-hosts, Lauren, Nicole, and Lara, for sharing their insightful segments today. And a huge thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to today's episode. We truly appreciate all your support. For details and show notes from today's episode, or to follow along with what's coming up this season, be sure to check out our Facebook page at A Sound Constitution or our Instagram at CHLY A Sound Constitution. And if you missed parts of this episode or you would like to catch up on past episodes, you can always find us on YouTube at A Sound Constitution. Once again, it's Jamie here, your host. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you all next week.